I'm David Lowe, and today we'll be talking to Jonathan Sung, who is founder of Nifty, which is a prototyping consultancy and an entrepreneurial ecosystem builder. So welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's just dive straight into it. So the first question I've got is there a typo in the title of this episode? So should it have said prototype because it says pretotype?
The correct term for it is pretotyping, and pretotyping is actually very different to prototyping because prototyping asks, can we build it? While pretotyping asks, should we build it?
Okay, all right. So can you elaborate and give me a bit more of a summary of what pretotyping is?
Yeah, so pretotyping is basically a method for using creative manual experiments to validate your own startup idea by getting your own data.
Okay, all right. So why is this important? What happens if we don't do this stuff?
So basically what happens is if you don't pretotype and you instead kind of like follow what a lot of other founders do, which is, they either try to do user surveys to, ask other people's opinions, or they don't even do that step and they skip straight into building the product right away. What usually happens is that there's an increased likelihood of failure just because that they're not getting the right data to validate whether or not there's truly any demand for their product or not. And recently we've kind of seen this with the failure of this of the short video app Qibi. Is that how you pronounce it? Qibi or Qibli?
Your guess is as good as mine, John.
Yeah, it's so Qibi. They raised $2 billion and it was highly touted. But in the end of the day, they've had to shut down in 6 months because nobody, to put it quite frankly, nobody really wanted to be on the platform. And so it was just kind of like, that really got me thinking that had they pretotyped Qibi beforehand, that they would not have wasted $2 billion.
This sounds quite familiar. This sounds quite like stuff that Eric Ries talks about in Lean Startup.
Yeah, absolutely. And and a lot of aspects of pretotyping are actually very are similar to actually what Eric Ries talks about in Lean Startup. But I think the key difference is that what we like to say is that pretotyping is leaner than Lean Startup and more minimal than MVP. So in other words, the very first thing a founder should do before doing anything else with like a business idea, if he or she wakes up in the morning, midnight out of bed saying, I got the next big thing, this would be the next Facebook, the next Google, rather than talk to his or her friends and family about it or try to build what Eric Ries deems to be an MVP, the very first thing you should ever do is pretotype it by running a few experiments, some few manual things to see whether or not people would want it. Okay,
right. This sounds good. So let's delve into two things. So you mentioned experiments, but before we get to that, we should mention this book, right? So it's a brilliant book. And I'll put a link in the details here. It talks about a couple of things. So hypotheses, as well as these kind of tests or pretotype tests in experiments. So let's just delve into the hypothesis bit for a start. So he talks about XYZ in capital hypotheses, and then XYZ in lowercase letters hypotheses as well. So can you give me a bit more of an explanation about this hypothesis stuff? Because I'm really into the hypothesis. My upcoming book, just to get my cheap plug in, my upcoming book is delving into scientific method and hypothesis a lot. So tell us what Alberto is on about when he talks about these two types of hypotheses.
Well, first off, I think there isn't really much of a distinction between the capital XYZ hypothesis and the lowercase xyz hypothesis because they're both the same type of XYZ hypothesis. It's a method of basically quantifying what would business success look like for you in real-time numbers. To break down XYZ hypothesis is at least X% of Y or Z. X is your percentage, Y is your target market, and Z is basically how many of your target market will take certain action. So I guess a simple example that I like to use is if I had this idea for Airbnb for university dorm cleaning, okay, then what I would make a simple XYZ hypothesis and say at least 20% of students in the UK would pay £30 a month for other students to clean their accommodation or flats once a week. And then that's how you quantify what business success looks like for you.
So that's an example of an XYZ with capitals, right? I think, is it? And then the XYZ lowercase is what Alberto is suggesting, that you go closer to home. Is that right? So it might be that if you were at, I don't know, Worcester College in Oxford, that you might say, you know what, 20% of students at Worcester College in Oxford will pay for this on a, I don't know, on a Tuesday or something, and you go more specific. Is that a correct interpretation of these upper and lowercase?
Yeah. Well, actually, they have a different terminology for it. Actually, so there's the basic XYZ hypothesis, and then actually what you just referred to is a concept called hyperzooming. So essentially, what you want to do with hyperzooming is you want to take your original XYZ hypothesis and boiling down into an experiment that you can test right this moment, right? So for example, you've nailed the location, right? You've nailed the more specific target market. So if we were to hyperzoom this hypothetical university dorm cleaning service, it would be at least 20% of people at Worcester College in Oxford will pay £20 to have their flat cleaned once a week on Tuesdays. That's it.
Or in the next term or something like that, right? So something specific that we can test straight away.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Because I know there's a load of examples in here, and it's about how can you do a small test as soon as possible, as close to home. That's going to get you this important data, right? And so, as you mentioned, data is an important thing. So, but before I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? So you've just mentioned the experiment. So we've got our hypothesis, and then we want to test these hypotheses, right? So we want to run some experiments. And so again, there's a load of examples in here, but I don't know if you've got your favorites.
I think a couple of the ones that I really enjoy using include there's a facade method, which is basically where you do like a landing page and then you actually take some sort of action afterwards. So I guess a good example of that is me and a few other university students, we built an app to match US high school students to their best fit universities, okay? So we did not prototype in that situation, and I wish I did. But if I had an opportunity to prototype that again, what I would have done is I would have had students answer a simple question form on Typeform. And basically what I'll do after that is after they answer the question, I would sit down with a pen and paper. I would manually I would do a manual algorithm. I would make the best match for them and then send them an email with their best set of matches. And then that would be an example of the facade prototype. Another one I think I really like is called the mechanical Turk. You essentially kind of manually do what is supposed to be automated, right? So imagine if like an automatic ticket machine had not been invented. All right, how would you prototype an automatic ticket machine? Well, you'd have a human inside of a box, and then you'd have the passengers stick in their ticket, and then somebody would grab that ticket and then like put it out on the other side. And then there would be like a push button that say, congratulations, your ticket was accepted. And so you just keep doing that for like a bunch of other consumers. And that's how you would supposedly prototype an automatic ticket machine had it not been invented yet.
So an online version might be if I wanted a language translation. Someone types it in, and then there's a fleet of people behind, all experts in different languages, who would translate it manually and then type it back in and send it back out, right? So that kind of thing.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. A mechanical Turk comes from the chess game, right? I think there was an automated, yes. There was someone hiding underneath, kind of directing a robot. Okay.
You noted.
Good. And as you said, there are loads of others in the book here. So, okay. And you mentioned data. So we run these experiments. We get some data. I remember Eric Ries going on in Lean Startup talking about the vanity metrics and stuff. And Alberto is quite specific about the type of data that is important, right?
Yeah, exactly. So a big thing about what Alberto talked about is skin in the game data. So basically, skin in the game is, to put it in every man's terms, skin in the game is the metrics that define whether or not your business will be a success under your definition, right? Now, there's a few different levels of skin in the game data, right? The lowest value is a validated email address, followed by a validated mobile phone number, followed by if you get a lot of people to agree to sit in on a product demo of yours, that's also 1 point per minute. But the best way of validating whether or not your idea has merit or value is if actually people will put pre-order, love your product idea or your product demo so much that they will put like a pre-order for your product without it even existing. So one of the best examples of that is when Elon Musk first came out with the Tesla Model S. All he did, I think, in his presentation was he put this giant picture of like a Tesla Model S. It was just like a 3D mock-up, and he was just like, I'm not even sure if this car will get built. But if you want to guarantee to have a chance to buy this car, you know, I need you to put down a $1,000 deposit, and he got like 534,000 plus of those $1,000 deposits on the same day, thus proving that his Tesla Model S really had massive skin in the game. And so by getting that kind of data, you will actually legitimately prove whether or not your business has a high chance of becoming a business success or not.
Okay, so Kickstarter uses this, right? They ask for the payment. You're committing your payment up front before the person builds whatever it is, right? The product or service.
It's interesting you mentioned Kickstarter, because actually in one of Alberto's side videos on YouTube, he actually suggests against using Kickstarter for validation, because Kickstarter, for all of its merits, one weaknesses of Kickstarter is that Kickstarter doesn't always gear towards the target market that your product needs, right? They're just geared towards people that think something is cool, and, you know, they'll donate a little bit of money to it, right? So if you're trying to, for example, create a service for like elderly people in nursing homes, okay? Well, Kickstarter's not going to validate whether or not your product or service is going to be popular among elderly people in nursing homes. It's just going to prove how much money can you raise in like 12 hours based on hype. So in order to really, really prove whether or not a certain product or service would be a hit among elderly in nursing homes, you have to go to elderly in nursing homes and show it to them and see if whether or not them or their families would be willing to pay for such a thing.
So if we take your dorm cleaning example, just to kind of go through those. So you said there's a number of levels. So we go to Worcester College in Oxford for our first Pretotyping experiment, and we explain what or we put an advert up, and we say, leave your email, we design a type form or some page, and we say, give us your email, give us your Worcester College or Oxford University email address if you're interested in this. So it's not some throwaway email address, right? So that you'd kind of get 1 point for that, you were saying?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, or maybe ask them to actually give us their phone number or their room number or whatever. So there's more skin in the game there, because then we actually can contact them, you know, even more directly.
Yep.
But getting them to come and spend half an hour watching a demo of it would be more validated data. And then if we actually say to them, look, we want your first £30 for the first week's service, that's even more skin in the game, right? So we're kind of adding on how much skin in the game we get. Is that right?
Basically. So with the pre-orders, it's generally one. There's like a scale to it, right? So with the pre-ordering the service, it's like 1 point per pound. So if you get them to give you £30, that's 30 points. And so if you get 10 people to give you £30, that's 300 points or 300 pounds. Which in this case, with the dorm cleaning example, I would have just gone straight away to like, all right, give me 30 pounds in advance, and I will do a very, very excellent job, you know, cleaning up all of the mess that you made at the party that you did the night before.
Right. Well, I know what your price is now, John. So how about every Friday at my house? And okay, good. Well, this is all good. And so if people want to know more, obviously they can pick up the book. As I said, we'll stick a link in the bottom. But let's say that they want some expert help, right? And they want Nifty, or they're interested in Nifty helping them. What is it that you can offer?
Yeah. So basically, what I do is I basically help you do a couple of things. I walk through the entire process with you, and I hold you accountable to help you set up your metrics. And then via the results of your experiments, I can help you then readjust either, you know, different variations of your experiments, or even completely pivoting to a different startup idea if you really, really need to, right? Oftentimes, I think that that it's a lot harder than you think to like sometimes do these things completely on your own, especially unless you're extremely self-motivated like that. And I think that's where somebody like me comes along, where I can kind of essentially I'll give you kind of like a big heavy rundown on the first time we talk to each other, and then like for set fee, I'll kind of be in your ear. I will kind of essentially help you go through the entire process, and give you support when you need it, and then also just be a kind of like idea bouncing ear if you really need it while you're going throughout this journey of proving whether or not your business idea will be the next big thing.
Good. And so where can they find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find out more on my website at verynifty.co, or better yet, I'm always available on email and LinkedIn. My email, if you want to write it down, is yusun1998@gmail.com, or you can just type me in on LinkedIn. I'm generally pretty available via message, so feel free to give me a DM anytime.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you very much, John. Look forward to seeing more nifty-based prototyping come out. It sounds exciting stuff. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So we're going to wrap this up now. If you want more confidence in applying the fundamentals of Agile, then head over to scrumandkanban.co.uk and sign up to our mailing list to get free downloads such as our free 6-step guide to successful Agile implementations, as well as details of our workshops and certified training, blog posts, and other goodies. If you like this, then give us a thumbs up and press subscribe so you don't miss new videos, and let us know what you want us to cover in future videos by leaving a comment. Thanks for watching, folks. See you next time.